checking, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Orangebloods Modcast here on the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel. This video brought to you by the guys over at deadsexy.com. Go there to get your 25% off discount. Just use that promo code Orangebloods. And of course, like this video, subscribe to the channel, do all those things that we sometimes make Alex Dunlap scream about. Although I'll be honest, I'm still in a little bit of a fog. I took like a sleeping pill last night. And I am not out of it. It's like 11:30 in the morning, and I don't know that I want anybody screaming in my face. That is Jason Sukumel and Alex Dunlap. No Anwar Richardson today. It's summer camp in Austin, and both of the Richardson kids are at summer camp. So it's just the three of us today. We'll be talking a lot about recruiting, mainly because that's what's kind of going on right now. It's, the Texas football team kind of in the dungeon right now, doing summer school, summer workouts, all of those things, which on another day will have its place in the sunshine. But today it is recruiting. Jason, I'll start it off like this, and I'm curious to see where this goes because it sounds like our answers might be different. The Longhorns had a pretty big weekend on Saturday. They had a one-day camp where many of the state's top 2025 and 2026 kids showed up. I think 6 of the top 11 kids on my LSR top 100 for 2025 showed up. So it was a good list of guys to have in town. We're on the precipice of, on the 16th and the 23rd, the Longhorns having the two biggest weekends of the year in recruiting by far. So the question that I have is, for this podcast, is Texas about to surge? Is this the beginning of Texas doing what it did a year ago, which is really catch fire in June, and then they rode that momentum all the way to signing day? Or is this a little something less than what we saw a year ago? You could make the case that the early indications from this weekend were so positive, and getting a commitment from one of the top quarterbacks in the country in 2025. They seem to have done a really good job on the lone official visitor that was in town this weekend. And yet, where do you stand on whether or not we're on the verge of Texas and Texas football recruiting taking off like a rocket ship?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and we'll kind of gradually probably touch on all of it over the course of the next hour or so. But to answer your question, where do I stand on Texas recruiting taking off? It's a good question. It sounds odd. They're coming off of a weekend where, like you said, they had a ton of underclassmen talent on campus. They get a commitment from KJ Lacey, quarterback Alabama, one of the best quarterbacks in the country for the 2025 class. But if we're talking recruiting taking off, Catch, it's got to be the 2024 group, right? KJ Lacey is fantastic, and what they did last weekend with these 2025s and 2026s was incredible, getting them all on campus. Everybody we talked to gave their visits rave reviews. But they've got to still get things going in 2024. Last weekend, you mentioned they had one official visitor in Ryner Swanson come in. It's funny, I was actually talking to my wife last night. I said, kind of hit me. I was like, oh, this coming weekend, they don't have any visitors scheduled. I'm like, oh my gosh, I might not leave the couch all weekend. The 2 weekends after that, it's going to be literally around the clock working the 16th and the 23rd. So knock on wood, I'm expecting a slow weekend this weekend before things really get crazy second half of the month. But they did a great job with Ryner Swanson. They're one official visitor from last weekend. I talked to him. I put a story up on Orangebloods.com this morning. He told me, hey, man, before that visit, BYU was probably the school he was leaning to. But he basically said, hey, he finds himself favoring Texas now coming out of last weekend. He is going to Oregon this weekend, which has been on the books for a while. I thought it was interesting he changed it. He's now going to BYU on Monday. He wants to get that visit out of the way before he leaves. He and his family are going to Europe for a couple weeks, end of June. He wants to get that BYU visit out of the way before he leaves the country. That way he can come back from Europe, probably make a decision in July or possibly August. So Texas is in a great spot there. They've got to withhold these 2 upcoming visits. Now, looking beyond that, is recruiting about to take off? Well, if it is, it's going to come down to that June 16th and June 23rd weekends. To answer long-winded way of answering your question, I think we're certainly going to see a surge in recruiting in that 2024 group. I do not think it's going to be like last year where, I mean, it just exploded in June and July. You know, again, I've said it before, you had the Arch Manning effect last year. Arch commits and Jonte wants to follow him. You had all these offensive linemen commit on their official visits in June. I don't think you're going to see that this year. I think you're going to see guys maybe wait a little bit longer. I'm expecting more recruiting activity in terms of commitments. And maybe I'm wrong, man. The timing of these things is always the hardest part to predict. I mean, predicting where a kid is going to wind up, you know, that's difficult, but usually we have a pretty good handle on that. Predicting the timing sometimes can be very difficult. I think, though, I'm expecting more of these decisions to come down in July and even August than I am in June. So I think things are trending up, and it's going to get more busy and more productive in terms of commitment. But I'm not expecting a huge rush of 10 type commitments before the end of June. I think that's going to be dragged out till later in the summer.
It's funny, Jason, when I think back to last year and the momentum that Texas really picked up this month, 12 months ago, I think it was the CJ Baxter news. Now, he didn't commit right away, but right before one of the big recruiting weekend visits a year ago, there was out of nowhere, it felt like this buzz that CJ Baxter's just going to be a Longhorn.
Yeah.
And we put in future cast for him. We were kind of on commit watch. It ended up taking a little bit longer before his recruitment was completely finished. It wasn't like it happened in a span of a day or two and then he was committed. There was a lot of buzz, and then that buzz held, and then he eventually committed. But it was at that moment that we already kind of felt like Arch was going to happen. But it felt like that news cemented what we thought was happening with Arch on the Texas side of things. You mentioned Jonte Cook. There just suddenly was a lot of buzz. The Texas had a lot of ground, a lot of momentum suddenly going for it. What could happen in the next couple of weeks, both in that weekend? I feel like I know the answer. Maybe the answers are obvious. But for you, what happens on the 16th, the 23rd, those weekends that will be, for you, the sign that the rocket ship is truly taking off, and that when it comes to recruiting, you just got to trust this staff. They're going to get guys on campus, and when they do, good things usually happen.
I think they have to come out of those weekends. Again, I'm not expecting commitments from these guys, but I think they have to come out of those weekends cementing their position as the leaders, the clear leaders, for guys like Micah Hudson. Some of the top prospects on their board. I mean, right now they're kind of in a dogfight. I mean, Micah's got Texas and Texas Tech, and a lot of people think maybe Texas Tech is the team to beat. So, I think they've got to just come out of that weekend. I don't know that they need to. I can pull up the visit list as I talk. There's so many guys coming in those two weekends, but I don't think that they, Colin Simmons, obviously, I don't think they're going to come out of the weekend with a commitment from a guy like Colin Simmons. But if they can do a good enough job with Colin Simmons, Micah Hudson, some of these other top guys on their board, where they come out of the weekend and those guys are saying, hey, man, Texas knocked it out of the park. Texas is my leader, kind of like what Ryner Swanson said about his visit this last weekend. I think those would be the things that would kind of set the foundation for this rocket ship to eventually take off. I think you're going to get some commitments. I've got my eyes on a guy like Jarrett Gibson, the running back out of IMG Academy. I've kind of been told, hey, keep an eye on that one to maybe pop during his official visit that June 23rd weekend. So, that would be huge to get a Rivals 100 running back committed. They'll probably land a couple other guys in June. But again, I think they need to come out of those weekends, June 16, June 23rd, as the clear leaders, setting themselves up for when Micah Hudson, Colin Simmons, and some of those guys do make their decisions. I'm looking back at last year, Catch, if I can just read these names. These are the commitments that happened in the month of June, and I'm going to cheat a little bit and go to June 3rd. There was one guy that committed June 3rd, but you had Spencer Shannon, Will Randall, Arch Manning, Leona LaFau, Trevor Gooseby, Andre Kojo, Connor Strode, Jaden Chapman, all those linemen I just mentioned committed on their official visits. Derek Williams, Billy Walton, Jonte Cook, Sadir Mitchell. Those were all in about a 2.5 week span in June.
It's a big 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, it was a crazy 2.5 weeks. My head was spinning, Alex, you're right. But I just don't know that we're going to see that this year. First off, their biggest weekend is June 23rd. It's later. Last year it was their big weekend. Well, no, it was late June last weekend. I guess I'm mistaken. So maybe I'm wrong on the timing of this, but I just don't think we're going to see a ton of commitments in June. I think these guys want to take all their official visits, be it to Texas, and some of these, Micah's visiting Texas Tech, of course. Colin Simmons has taken a ton of big visits. Jared Gibson's taken a ton of visits before Texas. I think guys are going to take visits and then maybe take a little bit of time to process things before they commit, maybe in July or August. To answer your question, then, what could Texas do? Yeah, getting a wave of commitments from 6, 8, 10 players would be incredible. I'm not expecting that. I just think Texas needs to get a couple commitments, get Jarrett Gibson, get some of these other guys that maybe you're leading for, kind of seal the deal with them, but then set yourself up to maybe just knock it out of the park with a wave of July and August commitments, maybe from a guy like Micah Hudson if he decides to commit early. Colin Simmons, I don't know that he's going to commit early. Parker Livingstone, if I just go down this, Parker Livingstone's he is going to commit early, set a date. So set yourself up to possibly win with him. Alex January. Kobe Black is a guy that hasn't set a commitment date but could commit early. Jordan Johnson-Rebel, the safety out of IMG Academy. Daniel Cruz. I mean, there's a lot of guys that Texas is in a really good spot with. They just need to kind of take that next step forward towards closing on commitments from some of these guys.
Alex, I'm curious, recruiting's not your primary beat on the job at Orangebloods. I mean, you're mostly a team management, in-house scout, if you will, breaking down film, analyzing what's already on campus more so than the recruiting stuff. But that allows us to have a fresh set of ears and quite frankly, Jason and I can get so deep into the weeds on a daily basis with what's happening daily. I'm curious your perception of what you're hearing and what your general vibe is based on just your perception of recruiting.
Well, I mean, certainly coming into last weekend, I wasn't I guess coming out of this month, I don't think that the biggest news should be the 2025 quarterback, right? I think the 2024, Jason, is there any chance that we get out of this month and the highlight is KJ Lacey?
That would surprise me, Alex. I think they'll get a couple commitments. That would shock. If they don't get any commitments,
it might be KJ Lacey. I mean,
he's a heck of a player. But
there's Jarrett Gibson, who I'm not as high on as I think the national rankings currently are.
Well,
but is there anybody with a better national profile than Gibson that commits?
Probably not. I mean, again, I mentioned maybe Kobe Black. I tell you, Daniel Calhoun, that lineman out of Georgia, is fantastic. He's probably going to commit in the summer. I don't think it happens in June. KJ Lacey, listen, he's a quarterback. He's out of state. He gets all the sexy headlines, and he's a great player, right? He deserves them, but you guys know how recruiting is. The sexy headline is the most recent headline. KJ Lacey commits, and then a day later, he's old news. So if Jarrett Gibson commits
on back, and he's good, man.
He's really good.
That guy's got a whip, dude. I mean,
if Jarrett Gibson commits on June 23rd, or June 25th, let's say on Sunday of his visit, that'll be the big news because that'll be the one that people will be talking about and people will remember.
Well, I mean, it's just to me, I'm a lot like the rest of the fan base. I guess my expectation would have been, what are they sitting on 3 2024 recruits right now? Mm-hmm. One of them's a punter. Mm-hmm. My expectation was, they're going whole hog here with these official visit weekends on the weekend of the Father's Day weekend and then the weekend after that. My expectation would be certainly what you just read off from the 2023 class. That's not going to happen again because there's not going to be an Arch Manning effect. It feels like that was definitely what was conducive to that whole massive explosion. Like, that was a bunch of good players that you listed, man. So I wouldn't expect something like that, man. But, to come out of – do you think we could come out of June with maybe – it feels like if you come out of June with less than 10 guys, that feels like maybe there's kind of a little – maybe moving a little bit slower than I would have thought. Where do you put the over-under?
Yeah, I was about to say, you took the words out of my mouth. If I'm setting an over-under at 10, I'm 100% taking the under. And listen, man, I might wind up being wildly wrong on this because official visits, crazy things can happen on official visits, and it kind of gets contagious if guys start committing. We saw it last year with these offensive linemen. But as it stands right now, Alex, I'm certainly taking, if you set the bar at 10, I'm taking the under in terms of commitments.
So what about? Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to ask him one other thing.
No, go for it.
What about the I forget his name. Then the tight end. He looks like a Dalton Kincaid. Swanson.
Ryner Swanson. Yeah.
So he's going to take his visits again after he has visits after this to BYU.
He's got Oregon this weekend, and then BYU he actually scheduled for Monday. Just so he, but again, then he leaves for. I want Ryner Swanson's family to adopt me, by the way, but they're going to
I'm telling you, dude.
He was in Hawaii like over spring break, and now they're going to Europe. He said they're going to like Italy and Croatia and all these places. So, but to answer your question, he's taking Oregon Friday, BYU on Monday. He leaves the country for a couple weeks, so that one likely doesn't go down until July or maybe even August.
Because you watch, you guys know me. I've never wanted to get fired up over these tight end guys, but man, that guy's a player. He's really, really good after catch. He could be but you're saying that he's going to announce before his senior season starts?
Yeah, that is the plan. And Ben asked, is he going to take a mission? He is taking a mission. He's going to enroll. He's going to go to the college of his choice for 1 year, and then he's going to take, I think it's a 1-year mission trip. So he's going to go get a taste of college, take a year off, and then come back.
I admit that I hate that. It's like the worst.
I get it, dude. I mean, hey,
first year.
Yeah, and a lot of guys just take it before they ever go to college, but he and his family decided they wanted him to get a taste of college. And he's really young, guys. He doesn't turn – so what, he's 16 right now. He doesn't turn – I think maybe this week he told me he turned 17. So he's really young for his grade. He won't turn 18 until after he graduates. Well, he graduates in December, well after he graduates. So
Jason, it's really fascinating because we're in an era where guys are entering the portal really second-ish year in college. Like, if it's not happening after that first year and they sense that they're just buried on the depth chart, guys are often in 2023 going to the portal. He'll be in a unique place in that obviously his headspace wouldn't be there, but he's going to go away for a year. And then you almost expect that it would take another year to kind of get back into the flow of you missed the full off season in college. You didn't have spring football. His just career trajectory is going to be a real fascinating one to watch.
Yeah, he's a long-term take. I mean, listen, he might come in his true freshman year and play early, and then, he has that kind of talent, and then take a year off. But you're almost looking at him like, okay, that's a guy that 3 years from now is going to really be a contributor. I want to jump back. Someone asked in the chat, why is everyone, it's Ben again, writing off Hunter Modden? Is he really going to get processed or leaving on his own? Hunter's an interesting guy, man. I mean, Texas recruited him as a wide receiver. Obviously got a new wide receiver coach in Chris Jackson. Now they're talking to him as a defensive back. I talked to Hunter Modden last week, and our connection was awful, so I couldn't even write anything. But he hasn't set a Texas official visit. This is a guy who's committed. He's not coming in on the 16th or the 23rd. He told me he talks to Sark periodically, but it's not like he's having a ton of interaction with the coaches. So, I'm not saying that he's not going to be part of this class. I don't want to throw that out there and yell fire in a crowded theater, but the signs, just don't line up. I mean, we're talking about the punter. I mean, Michael Kern, he's got his official visit set up for the 16th. Trey Owens has his visit set up for the 23rd. Hunter Modden does not have an official visit set up. I don't know. That one's just kind of touch and go. So, I'm very much keeping an eye on that one just to see how it unfolds in the coming months.
What did he say about DB? Is he a Jordan Whittington about it, where he's just like, no?
No. He's okay with it. He just says he really doesn't have a preference as a DB or a wide receiver. So
I think DB is his best position.
I think I tend to agree with you, Catch. He's a really good athlete, but LSU is recruiting him as a DB. Texas is now talking to him as a DB, but I just don't get the impression Texas has a lot of good DBs on their board that are, looking pretty strongly at the Longhorns. So maybe that's part of it, but they're not beating down the door saying, we've got to get you to Austin. I can't remember the last time Hunter Modden was in Austin. He didn't hit any of the last 2 or 3 recruiting events Texas held. He doesn't have an official visit set up for June.
He's like Kyle Baker, but committed.
Yeah, kind of. It's not a so. Yeah, it's he's an interesting one to follow. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on that one moving forward for sure.
Can I just ask a quick question from what people are saying in the chat, because admittedly I'm ignorant on this stuff, but so if back to Jensen, Ryan Swanson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or is it Ryan or no Ryner Swanson?
Yeah.
So people in the chat are saying that Mormon missions are 2 years.
That's what I always thought, and maybe that is normally true, and I need to clarify with Ryner. For some reason, I have 1 year stuck in my head, and I don't know if I'm kind of merging. I know he's going to college for 1 year is the plan, and maybe that's where I'm getting the 1 year thing. But I seem to recall him saying he's doing a 1 year mission, but traditionally they are 2 years. But I need to make a note and clarify that the next time I talk to him.
And then my other question on that is, and you probably don't know that. You don't know the answer to this. Like, are you allowed to kind of skip it? Is it kind of like it's kind of like you could talk to your family and you can.
Yeah, you don't have. Junior Anglo, I was going to do one,
or if like, or is it something where it's like completely forbidden to skip it? Like,
no, I don't know that it's for. You're right. I don't know the answer for sure, but I know Junior Anglo, I was. There was talk that he was going to do one, and some guys wait till their college career is over. So I don't think it's set in stone where they're going to get kicked out of the church if you don't do it. I don't know the answer though, Alex, but there are different ways people attack it. And, Junior hasn't done one yet. So is he ever going to? I don't know. But, Ryner he's pretty dead set on doing one. He's a very, just his religious beliefs and his faith are as strong as any kid I've ever talked to. When he was on campus this weekend for his official visit, they took him and showed him a bunch of those things on campus. So he, where he can worship and meet other people like that. In fact, he took his official visit guys Thursday through Saturday because he and his family want Sundays to worship. So he went home on Saturday afternoon from his official visit from Texas. It was from Thursday through Saturday. I've never, in 20 something years, I've never heard of a guy taking a Thursday through Saturday visit because they want Sundays to worship. But hey, I said this, I think I said it to you in the Slack channel last night. Whatever he wants to do, good for him. And he is genuinely maybe the nicest recruit I've ever covered. The guy is like almost too good to be true, man. So,
one of the things with Swanson that you'll have to keep an eye on is if he commits to a school or signs with a school other than BYU. A lot of times those kids come back from their missions and then they transfer back to BYU or Utah or kind of back home after that. So again, his recruitment and kind of his storyline will be fascinating to watch because, if he picks Texas, Alex, if Jatavion goes pro as we expect after this season, it's a position that could easily have a really talented young player come in right away and make an immediate impact because I don't know what I think of Will Randall and Spencer Sanders. I think
Will Randall, is coming off of a significant injury, so there's that. Spencer Sanders was more of a blocking. He can catch, but he was more of a blocking tight end in high school. He didn't. There's like Spencer Shannon. Yeah, thank you. He didn't
too
even
many names in my head, Alex.
Yeah, I missed
the Oklahoma State.
I know.
But he didn't play a lot, even in like a state championship game, because the offense wasn't geared towards what he. So, you're right, Catch, to answer your question. And Spencer Shannon, by the way, was Ryner Swanson's official visit player host. And I thought it was funny. Ryner said, we didn't do like the parties. And he goes, that's not my thing. We didn't go to parties. They went to thrift shops instead. So I told Ryner, I was like, man, I call those junk stores personally, but I said my wife loves them. She could have been your host and shown you a bunch of thrift shops. So this kid, Ryner Swanson's a unique kid, unique situation in every way. But
the thing I thought about him whenever you watched his huddle is impressive, and it's like 12 minutes long. It's not one of these ones where it's it shows you 2 or 3 clips. You get to see a lot. It's so crazy how he's out of the slot all the time. He's out of the slot. They sometimes they put him as an H-back, but it's generally just because they run this zone slice thing where they just get him across the formation and throw him these little screens. He's a yards after catch dude that reminds you, like I said, a ton of, just watching Dalton Kincaid this last year and doing the evaluations for him. It makes you think to the idea that if he were going to come in just for one season and then have to go, or the plan would be to go off, what we always say about tight ends, whenever tight ends take the leap to the next level, be it from high school to college or from college to the NFL, there's always more of a learning curve because it's so tough. You got to get into the offensive line room. You got to know what the wide receivers are doing. You got to know what the quarterbacks are going to call. And so that's why I say, like in fantasy football, it's always generally just a good rule of thumb not to take rookie tight ends because they're generally just not going to be on the field enough unless it's a dude who's going to be utilized just as a pass catcher, just a dude out of the slot. And I think that this is a guy who you can line up in the slot and can maybe come in and make an immediate impact, if he carries over that yards after catch potential at the college level, simply because he wouldn't have to learn all the offensive line calls and the slide protections and everything else like that.
Swanson's an interesting cat. Like someone says he's going to BYU. Like honestly, like he flat out told me Texas is the team to beat coming out of the weekend. But if I'm betting, Oregon and BYU coming up, there's going to be some movement there. I mean, it just makes sense. BYU makes a lot of sense. So I'm not going to argue that point. But he's a guy who like throws the shot put. He runs sprints in track, right? I mean, that's kind of a weird. And then he plays football. Yeah. He surfs. He's like a pretty good skateboarder. He plays the guitar. This guy's like a jack of all trades, man. So, but yeah, personally, I've said it before. Hey, dude, I was joking with him again last night. I was like, hey, that's what, I didn't get to meet him on his official visit. I was down on campus. Our paths didn't cross. And I was like, yeah, I'd like to meet you. And he goes, yeah, I really want to meet you. I hope we get to meet. I said, dude, I promise you, if you commit to Texas, and I'm not saying this to influence the decision, of course, but I said, I will make it a point to get out to. Doesn't hurt that he plays in Laguna Beach, right, Alex? So I will make it a point to Laguna Beach to go watch him play a game on a Friday night.
Jason, one of the elements changing the conversation slightly, I think Texas could get to 10 commitments by the end of June. I think they've got a cluster of in-state guys, Daniel Cruz, the offensive lineman being one of those guys. We think Jarrett Gibson's a guy, that if those two guys committed, now you're at 5. Like, I think
Alex January, I'm like, we can go down the list.
Yeah. I think that Parker Livingston, or we've talked about
he set a date for August, so he's not going to commit. The plan is for him to not commit in June. He's got a date for August. Who's
the guy that set up the July 1st commitment date? Or did I just invent that in my head? It seemed like I saw it on social media last week. Somebody said it.
His is August 2nd, I believe. I need to go back and look at his Twitter feed. But, Aaron Hampton could commit. Mike Christian Clark, Jordan Washington, the tight end, Melvin Hills, the defensive end out of Louisiana, if they push for him. Same with Freddie DeBose, if they push for Freddie. I can make a case catch where they get to 10. And especially like we said earlier, those things kind of get contagious, right? Those guys are on official visits and it just kind of has a snowball effect.
I think the coaches have held on to some of these commitments, hoping that if they unleash a few of these during June, that it might trigger the momentum.
No, again, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm not expecting it. I would take the under if I'm a gambling man on something like that.
So we've got one guy in the chat, Brazar10, who's saying multiple times that Livingston is July 1st.
Is it July 1st? I need to look at his. I'm actually pulling up his deal right now. Why did I think it was 8 something? But who knows?
I don't know. I just called Spencer Shannon, Oklahoma State quarterback Spencer Sanders. So my brain's not all the way there. The point that I was going to make, though, is that I think Texas can get to 10. I just don't know that. The thing that would concern me is that we wouldn't be talking about the first 10 being 30 or 40% super blue chips. It's not.
Hey, real quick, on June 1st, he tweeted 1 month, so it would be July 1st. I don't know why I had 8 in my head for some reason, but yeah, it is.
Taking a sleeping pill last night too.
Yeah, assuming it's literally 1 month, yes, that would be July 1st. Yeah.
I just think that we're going to see an early Texas commitment list where they get up to 10, and it's not going to be flashy. Now, I fully expect Jarrett Gibson to be one of those guys, and he is a national top 100 right now, closer to national top 50 than anybody else that we're talking about. So there wouldn't be void of guys in that territory, but it will leave a lot of work in the second half of this recruiting class to start pinging super blue chips. You mentioned it, Jason. You start looking at last year's early commitment list. You had Arch, you had Jonte, you had
Mitchell,
Derek Williams. Depending on Sadir Mitchell's recruitment rankings were a affair because some people, I think ESPN had him ranked the highest. Somebody had Sadir Mitchell as like a top 100 player, and then there was a number of services that didn't really have him ranked high at all.
Didn't you mention Jonte Cook in that period too?
I don't. He would be a guy that obviously in that period. So you got to a point where at the end of June, you were like, "Holy cow!" Like you could see the makings of a top 5, top 3 class on paper on the commitment list. I'm not sure that I'm giving them some benefit of the doubt here that they'll get to 10-ish by the end of this month. I don't think you'll look at that commitment list and go, oh, okay, this is clearly headed for the type of recruiting class that it ended up being a year ago, which was one of the best in the history of the school. It would almost feel like my gut tells me the foundation will be in place. They got to go get some skyscrapers, though. They got to go get some real big-name guys. Jason mentioned the Micah Hudsons and the Colin Simmons of the world. Those are the guys that ultimately move the needle. But I don't expect that any of those guys are going to be in the group of names that we're talking about. So, again,
Micah. There's a lot of talk about Micah in the chat. Micah keeps saying – Micah Hudson, of course, the 5-star receiver out of Lake Belton. He keeps saying he's going to wait, late in the process. There's kind of been behind the scenes some scuttlebutt that he might go ahead and commit this summer and maybe not even announce it till later. So, or maybe he commits and does announce it. But if he commits this summer, I don't think that's great for Texas. I think the choice would be Texas Tech. So a lot of people are saying, hey, if Micah commits, that'll get Texas over 10. Yeah, but if Micah commits, there's no guarantee, guys, that it's going to be Texas if he commits this summer. I think if you're Texas, you want him to stick to what he's saying publicly, which is wait till September, October, November, even December. If he commits in June, especially if he does it privately, I would strongly favor Texas Tech in that recruitment. And it's so funny. Like we were talking this weekend, and I was talking to other media members. We're down there for the camp and elite camp and all this pool party and stuff. And they act like it's some big revelation. Like, I don't know, man. I'm starting to think Micah might go to Texas Tech. I'm like, dude, been saying that since I talked to him in March down at the Texas Relays. It's like Texas Tech is a legit player in this, and Texas fans haven't wanted to hear that. They're starting to come around a little bit, and even Texas media members, some of them haven't believed it. But I'm telling you, man, Micah's he's a unique kid. He has different priorities than some kids his age. He kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. I mean, Texas Tech is a real threat there. And if he commits this summer, and I just jumped in and kind of took this a different place, but I'm not convinced it'll be Texas. So,
we can't go, Jason, we can't go in a wrong direction if the conversation's a 5-star prospect. If you out of nowhere segue us into Colin Simmons, it's okay. Or Alex, the light bulb just went off in Alex's head because he is Mr. Sell your soul to get Colin Simmons by any means necessary. The thing about Micah, he and his family had a less than stellar experience the last time they were on campus. They haven't been back. Their next visit will be the official visit. And the sense that, if you're a Texas fan right now and you think Texas leads, you're wrong. You just are. Based on what happened the last time they visited and the experience that the entire family had, the feeling is that Texas has work to do. So if that kid and his family are planning on a commitment at this stage, it's not towards Texas. So the
If you're
longer this
Texas,
thing goes
though,
on,
like,
the better.
you've got to be selling, and I know they will. You got to be selling, obviously, Arch Manning, KJ Lacey, Micah. Look at the future of this program at the quarterback position, what is directly going to impact your future. I mean, Micah's just, like I say, he's a great kid. I mean, he's an awesome kid. But he's a unique kid. Like, it's going to take a different sales pitch to win him over than the traditional stuff. But
real quick, Chad,
yeah.
the phrasing that I heard, and this is third person, so I got my information from somebody else, but wasted their time was how I heard. You want to know what less than stellar on the last unofficial visit that they took during the spring while the team was practicing? Less than stellar translates to a waste of their time.
Sheesh.
That's what they've got to come back from. Was the last time they were in Austin, the family felt like they wasted their time on that visit. And, you know, part of what Texas was talking about was, hey, we'll get you on the official visit and we won't waste your time. But it's a little bit that they've got to come back from. And it's possible because Jason just laid out the recruiting pitch. If you're a wide receiver, and Cole talked to Micah a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that Micah said was at the quarterback position and what each school has lined up would be a big part of his decision. I mean, you know, this is where Texas Tech fans and I got into a big, like, it was a thing for like a week because I had the audacity to say if it comes down to quarterbacks, Texas has arguably the best quarterback room in the country. And, oh, by the way, they just added a guy. We've got to do the KJ Lacey portion of this show in a little bit because I think he may end up being a 5-star quarterback when it's all said and done. Alex, I had not watched film of that kid because he's not in my territory, right? So
yeah.
When it comes to 2025 kids, I've done a lot on the in-state guys, but man, I'm still watching video of 2024 out-of-state kids, let alone what. So when he committed, I don't know what I expected.
Yeah, no, for me, it was like a complete opening up of like a black box and just seeing what you got here. You know?
It was. I opened up the box. It was like one of those bags of jelly beans where like they're mystery flavors and you just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, it's rare. When I knew the kid was a nationally ranked player, so on some level, I expected him to be really good. But I was wowed with his video in ways that the very first thing you notice, like, oh, this guy's tiny. It's hard to ignore, right? The very first time you pop on the film, because you see him listed at 6'1", 180, you're like, okay. And then you see the film and you're like, is he 6'1" or is he 5'10"? Like, I don't know. Because on film, he just looks small. Then he starts throwing the football. And I found myself jaw on the ground like this guy is not only whipping the ball all over the field, but he's doing it at wildly different arm angles. He's doing it, his feet, I don't know that kid has mechanics because every throw looks a little bit different. His feet look a little bit different. His arm angle looks – he is a unique quarterback prospect. The thing is, he's going to have the size, which goes against him, Alex, but he's like a Kyler Murray winner. He's already got one state championship at the 6A level in Alabama under his belt. We may be talking about a guy that by the time he finishes his high school career is a 2 or 3-time state champion at the highest level of high school football in the state of Alabama with all of the stats to back it up, a highlight tape that looks like an and one video from back in the day on the basketball scene. I think when it's all said and done, that guy's going to have so much going for him that he has a chance to be a 5-star prospect when it's all said and done.
Hey,
Jason, have you ever seen that guy in person? You ever stood next to him?
No, I didn't get to see him this weekend, Alex. So no, I have not. And honestly, I'm like Catch. I mean, I knew Texas had offered him. I wrote about him in the war room, and I said, hey, he's come in for a visit. He's one of only 2 quarterback offers, but I hadn't poured over his film. But whenever I heard on Saturday that he was going to be committing later that day, and like Catch, we start getting our things in motion and get edits done, and Catch starts working on his instant analysis. So I'm sitting down there on campus watching his huddle film on my phone, and I was like, holy shit, that guy's got some like Patrick Mahomes to him. And like everybody around me is like, oh, shut up. I'm like, I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, guys, but I mean, he does have some of those intangibles about him. And I even asked him, Catch, when I talked to him, I said, dude, those arm angles and some of these throws, is that something you actively, consciously work on in practice? He goes, no, man. He goes, guys coming at me, I'm going to do whatever I do to get the ball around him or under him or over him or whatever it is. It's just because it just comes pretty naturally to him. So he's
a really, like, for his age, he's a really quick processor. And like, I mean, like,
natural feel for things.
When I see his arm, I can't help but just call it a whip, just because it's like it goes all kinds of different ways. It's like, but and also his throwing motion. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's more elongated. It's like, and it's not just that. It's like the controlled chaos of how he is just whenever he's just it's not just the arm angles or the throwing motion and stuff. It's all the off platform stuff. He moves really, really well. And he just finds little spots he finds little spots to where he gets these open windows, and then he can make all the throws. I'm hoping he's not 5'10". I mean,
Alex, it's funny. You asked me if I'd seen him in person, and I know why you're asking me that. I think I'll tell you this. I wrote a story on him yesterday. I interviewed him yesterday morning, and I wrote a story. And I went into the Rivals database, right? And I'm picking a picture to run with the story. And I'm like, the picture we have, I'm like, is that real? Is that him from like 3 years ago, or is that how he looks now? And I don't mean that like I'm not trying to make fun of him, but he looks so young and so small. So I ended up using a picture of him from his visit. Actually, it's from his visit to Texas in March, and he's got his full helmet on, UT gear. So I was like, I didn't want to use a picture that was like 3 years old, but I don't know, if that's what he looks like now or how old that picture is. So yeah, I need to, I may have to, get out to Alabama or find a way to see him in person to get some updated pictures and size him up in person. Yeah.
Well, he's still young. He's still at an age where
he might be 6'3" by the time he enrolls in college, right?
I'm just saying that when I watched the film, the first thing I noticed was his size. Like, it's unmistakable. You look at it and you go, oh, okay. Because Sark generally likes big pro style. He's got a type. And Trey Owens is kind of in that mold of the 2024 quarterback commitment. You can close your eyes and see Maalik and see Arch and see Quinn, and Trey Owens fits the bill. When I first saw this kid, I was like, whoa. And I think I expected, because he's smaller, to be more of a runner. Like, I think I expected more of a pure Kyler Murray package. Yeah. But he's not that at all. In fact, you'd almost say he's like Kyler Murray if you took away the run factor that Kyler Murray brings to them. Because he'll run around in the back, he'll be in the pocket and he can scramble and move around and he's slippery, but he does not look – he's very Teddy Bridgewater-ish in that the line of scrimmage is like a line in the sand, and he's going to get rid of the ball with his arm before he gets to that line in the sand. He's incredible, though. Like, height aside, and it's funny, I saw somebody – I instinctively watched him throw the ball, and knowing his background, having been such a winner last year at an early age, and it sounds like that high school's just dripping, soaking wet with talent, which also is kind of reminiscent of what Kyler played with at Allen. I thought of Bryce Young, but then I felt I did feel a little guilty in using the Bryce Young comparison, but the reason why I did it was because Bryce is kind of a smaller guy. And if you look back to when Bryce was a sophomore in high school, they would have had very similar profiles. And it was interesting. I think one of the guys over at 24/7 did an interview with KJ, and he mentioned that Sark basically referred to him as, Bryce Young all over again, except this time he gets to keep him as opposed to recruiting him to Alabama and then leaving Alabama after his freshman year to take the Texas job. I say all of that just to go back to the very 30 minutes ago where I think Alex, he's going to be the big splash of this month. And I don't know that I necessarily mean that as a slam towards anybody in the 2024 class, but I think they've got something special with this kid. He's not perfect because he is a smaller guy, but everything else other than the size has me really excited about him as a prospect.
I keep thinking about just as far as the timing of it and whether he's the story coming into July, whether he's sort of the story of June when you have these two huge unofficial visit or these two huge official visit weekends coming up, that might be in a weird way kind of disappointing that you got this stud quarterback, but it's a 2025. We're still kind of behind the 8 ball for 2024. And I'm reminded a little bit of after the season ended last year and the first press conference after the end of the season before the bowl game that was close to the beginning of December or maybe just at the very end of November, whenever somebody asked Sark about recruiting, was this last year? And he's like, man, especially the offensive line, because that was before DJ Campbell. It was before Cam Williams flipped back. It was before.
That was November of 2021.
Okay. So whatever year that was. Okay. Whenever Sark said, you guys don't think that we could have this class filled out right now?
Yeah.
You guys don't think we could have it filled out right? He goes, I could get on the phone right now and have this class filled out.
Anwar asked him that question at a press conference, and that was before, no pun intended, the flood of offensive linemen that came in right about the time that the Pancake Factory was announced, and Oregon gets unsettled, so Cam Williams is reconsidering his position, and all of it really came together. But this staff, the point you're making, Alex, they've earned the benefit of the doubt with regards to recruiting and being kind of questioned about, God, how's it going? Are you guys going to be okay?
Yeah. And I think that my point is, I don't think that this staff is going to be a group that is going to let this artificial deadline that might not even exist to them, that just for some reason sort of exists to me, is, come out of these official visits with commitments, right? Maybe they don't see it like that. Maybe they see it like, look, we have our guys. We got to wait some of these guys out. We know what's going on with them. We're gonna stay the course. We're gonna go after our guys. We're gonna get our guys. And if that's the case, then it could look. There's gonna be hand wringing and worry among the fan base, no matter what. If everybody commits, I mean, people are already talking about KJ. They're already saying well, now he's on decommit watch. It's a 2025 kid. He's from Alabama. There's always something to complain about.
Hey, Alex, this is gonna make you cringe. I told Jason this yesterday. This got a little bit of a Mitch Mustang, it's not apples to apples, but that kid, KJ Lacey, is going – so here's what happened with him. Alabama's just slow played him. I think he's been on campus 2 or 3 times on unofficial visits. They've offered, but they've got a 2024 commit from Julian Sayin, which, he may be the best player in the country when it's all said and done, the best prospect. So they hadn't gone all in on 2025 yet. His teammate, the wide receiver, Ryan Williams, might be the best prospect in the country. He's ranked number 5 overall in the national rankings right now by Rivals. No doubt about it, 5-star. He's committed to Alabama, which I do think this opens the door for Texas to get into that recruitment in a way that it wasn't previously. And that kid put on his Instagram Live a picture on Saturday, is this where we're going, QB1? Lacey's a big deal. So what's going to end up happening is KJ Lacey's going to end up being one of the 3 most spectacular quarterback prospects that the state of Alabama has produced in the last 2+ decades. He's going to be a monster deal. especially if
Who are
they
the other ones? Who are the other ones in Alabama?
look it up. I know Bo Nix is one.
Well, you don't consider what's his name from McCarron. You don't consider him.
McCarron was like was a mid 4-star.
Okay.
So technically, he was a guy that is in the same breath as the current. But if I'm not mistaken, McCarron was outside the Rivals National 100, whereas right now KJ Lacey's like 60 something. So it's not quite. He's way closer to being a 5-star or a very high 4-star than I think AJ McCarron ever was. Let me look it up. Who were the two guys? Okay. Jameis Winston was the other.
Oh, you forget Jameis. Yeah, you forget that Jameis is from.
So Jameis Winston was a 5-star in 2012. Bo Nix was a 5-star in 2019. And then you had AJ McCarron as a mid-4 in 2009 and Jeremy Johnson as a mid-4 in 2013. The previous 5-star that you'd have to go back to before Jameis Winston was Brody Croyle in 2001.
That's a long time ago. Yeah.
But that's not even the current, that's pre-Rivals modern era. So this guy's going to be a monster.
Feel like Mitch Mustaine to me, though, Ketch. Mitch Mustaine, if Alabama doesn't get KJ Lacey, I mean, Alabama's going to be fine. They're going to recruit it. You mentioned they've got Julian saying Arkansas had to get Mitch Mustaine. I mean, those people would have bulldozed his house down if he would have gone.
It's not apple to apple. It's like apple to banana. But I think the teammate aspect, because that school's loaded with talent. Texas just offered a defensive end who's a mid 4-star from the 2025 class, same high school.
Yeah.
So I bring the Mustang comparison up because I think Alabama's going to eventually go all in on that kid, which is way different than Mustang. Mustang was the number one priority from day one, hands down. They're eventually going to sell stay home, be home, all go to school together. And I think that there's going to be where it will be similar is that over the next 19 months, that kid will feel eventually an immense amount of pressure to stay home. Now,
he's also coming in, would be coming in behind, like you said, potentially the number one player in the country. I don't, man, I've only talked to KJ once. This is all fresh. He just committed on Saturday. That dude feels pretty happy and pretty locked in. I mean, I get it. He's a sophomore, right? You've got a long way to go with him. But,
they always seem locked in the day of.
But I'm telling you, he pretty much made his mind up after visiting for the spring game. He came in with a 7-on-7 team. He went home and told his parents, that's where I want to go. And they're like, do it. I mean, his family's on board. His family, of course, came with him this weekend, and everybody fell in love with it. Just the opportunity to play with Sark. AJ Milway's done a good job. So, I don't know, man. I mean, I see what you're saying. Alabama will pick up its intensity, especially if there's a threat of Texas going in and poaching some of his teammates. And then that's when things can really get scary for Alabama. But I think there's a stronger chance that he and his teammates go separate ways than there is that he flips to Alabama. I don't know. I don't get that sense right now.
I'm just telling you, I've seen this show too many times that he will take visits to Alabama before it's all said and done.
Well, he said he's going to be there for the Texas game. So I asked him, you can't show up wearing a burnt orange shirt. You better wear a white T-shirt or something. But
look, I'm hoping that kid ends up at Texas. I would love to follow that kid's career.
He's I think he has a lot of, someone mentioned Jalen Milroe right just now. Even Maalik Murphy. I never got to know Arch that way, but he's got some of those same just kind of personable leadership qualities. Yeah. So like you, I think I said it in our Slack channel, he's going to be a lot of fun to cover for the next year and a half, just because he's a really fun, engaging, confident kid as a sophomore, just finished his sophomore year in high school. So yeah, it'll be a fun story to cover, however it unfolds.
Let's knock out a couple of super chat questions and we'll wrap this bad boy up. A few of us want to get lunch before 4 o'clock today. We don't want Luby's we don't want Luby's to be our lunch at dinner time. Sorry, Buck Wild, for taking a while to get to your questions, but you're all ours for the rest of the show until we wrap things up. Jason, you looked at me dead in my virtual eyes about this time last year and said that Anthony Hill was probably not going to be a Longhorn. I believe in miracles. All love, Jason.
I don't remember. I probably did say that because he was trending to A&M. I think I did say, hey, he's still going to probably visit Texas, but he was going to commit to A&M. So
I hate it when things I said that I don't remember get referenced. It's like, I didn't say that. And
I probably did say that. I don't specifically remember everything I said about Anthony Hill, but yeah, I probably did say that because A&M was trending in the right direction. But yeah, all worked out in the long run.
So yes, hold on to that hope, Buck Wild, because
I think he's got another. Buck Wild's got another super chat coming.
He does, yes. Hudson and Simmons will be wearing Hook'em jerseys. Wow.
Write it down. So that's not really a question. That's a statement.
He's just letting us know. You know.
I don't disagree necessarily. Would I bet my mortgage on that? Absolutely not. But right now, I think Texas Tech is probably in the lead for Micah Hudson, but I still think that one's gonna come back long term. I still think at some point, I don't want to say he's gonna come to his senses because I'll have Texas Tech fans blowing up my Twitter feed or whatever, but I do think that he's going to see the light, so to speak, in terms of what Texas can present in terms of quarterback opportunities playing in the SEC. I do think Micah Hudson winds up at Texas. I know that's not probably the smart sentiment right now because we all think Texas Tech leads, so it seems odd to say it.
Recruiting common sense.
Yeah, you kind of got recruiting, man. You got to kind of look like through the trees or through the curves, right, and try to project sometimes. And I think Texas Tech's in a better spot right now, but I think Texas somehow wins out in the end. Colin Simmons, I still think LSU. I know recently he's said a lot of nice things about Texas. I think Texas is right there, but until I talk to Colin and get a different vibe directly, I still think LSU's probably the smarter play there right now. But listen, Texas is right there in the mix, so it's hard.
Well, the thing is, Buck Wild, let's say it's 50-50 for both kids right now, just to keep the math simple. The odds of Texas getting both, if they're 50-50, is 25%. So the smart money, the Vegas, where you'd want to probably hope, if you're putting your money on Texas, you better be getting some decent odds because the math says it's more likely that they don't both end up at Texas than they do. Who do you think you think Mike is the most likely of those two, Jason?
I would very slightly favor Micah of those two, yeah, but it's pretty close. I mean, I do truly think they're both, and I know it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I think they're both pretty close to 50-50. I really do.
I think we're projecting the 50-50 for Micah, and it's not 50-50 today, but I think we're projecting that the visit will go well when he takes his official visit. And a lot of what's been said, Anwar and I had this conversation behind the scenes, like what is said in May, it could sound quite different than what's said by the end of June. Because this coaching staff, when they get guys on campus for these official visits, I don't know if they're drugging the water. Like, I don't know how it happens, but these kids come out of these visits feeling like they've seen some burnt orange light. And I tend to think that that's what we're going to see from Micah Hudson. But as of today, it's totally us projecting around the curves. I think the biggest thing with Micah Hudson may be the family. I think my sense of what happened from the last visit was it ironed out some of the pro-Texas Tech feelings that may exist, and that in the name of having a bad visit or a visit that didn't live up to what they hoped it would be, that it allowed them to say out loud for the first time what they were really feeling, which is there is this close connection to Texas Tech. I wonder if that ends up being a split household when it's all said and done. We've certainly seen it a number of times in college football recruiting, but I think Tech may have the advantage internally with the family, and I think that may be the thing that Texas has to overcome. I don't think this is the case, obviously, with Colin Simmons. Just every recruitment's a snowflake, but I really believe the key to that visit in a couple of weeks may be, can they get the family coming away from that visit feeling the opposite of how they felt back in April when they visited? Those are the things I think you have to keep an eye on. If coming out of that, the vibe behind the scenes from the people that were giving vibes after that visit are different, then, all bets are off. And look, I still have my future cast with Micah Hudson for Texas, even though I don't think Texas is the leader right now. I think Jason and I are actually almost exactly on the same page with that recruitment. It's us. If we were to talk to people close to the situation, they would say we're crazy. This is Jason and I saying we've been doing this for 20 years, and we kind of can anticipate some of the beats that eventually are played in this recruitment. If they never happen, Jason and I might have to retire all the years of experience. Tell us this is how these things go. That's what we're
again. On that vein, Micah's a different cat, dude. He's a different cat than most kids, so he's a little bit tougher to read. Yeah.
Well, this is even a Texas Tech battle and not a Texas-Ohio State battle, is, I think, an indication that this isn't the typical recruitment. It could be historically remembered when it's all said and done. Okay, let's go into party shots and wrap this bad boy up. We've been going for more than an hour. Alex, what do you got for a party shot today?
Just 79th anniversary of D-Day, man. So figure we probably should mention that before we get off. Thank you to everybody that so heroically fights for our country and keeps us free. And for an operation like that, man, that was just so huge in scale and just one that we've seen pictures of all growing up that we kind of, they are so iconic. You know what I'm saying? It was such an important day in American history. So maybe if you get a minute today, take a minute to thank somebody who served or, say a prayer for those who are out there. And 79th anniversary, man. It's crazy.
Map out like 8 hours. If you're watching this show, turn off YouTube, go watch Band of Brothers on HBO Max, I guess now.
Yeah.
If you got 8 free hours to watch 10 episodes of television, I almost hate to ask. You've seen Band of Brothers, right, Alex?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Multiple. Jason, have you seen Band of Brothers?
I think I've seen most of it, but I don't think I ever finished all of it.
I saw that look on your face, and I was like, oh, God, here we go.
Hey, Ketch and I were talking the other day in Slack, and there was a movie. I like, oh, my God, I've seen that movie, and you haven't. So
I know.
I was like, well, that's a turning of the
I
table.
felt for a while like that might have been the sign of the apocalypse. Jason, what do you got?
First off, someone in my house, I think it must be my son, is making bacon, and I'm so hungry. I haven't had breakfast, much less lunch, so I can smell this bacon being cooked in my house. So it's hard to concentrate. But it was a very productive weekend for Texas, I think, on the recruiting front last weekend with that elite camp and then the pool party afterwards. Everybody, Cole Patterson and I were down there. Everybody we talked to just raved about their experience. I think Texas really helped its position with just about everybody that was on campus. We've had some notes, and we'll continue to have updates on Orangebloods, including in the war room, and probably leading it. There were so many kids, probably even into next week. So, like you said at Catch, these coaches do something right on these visits, man. They don't seem to ever miss, swing and miss, and it feels like they knocked it out of the park last weekend with some of those underclassmen. So, stay tuned to Orangebloods. Yeah, bacon sandwiches sound good. Stay tuned to Orangebloods, and we'll have continued coverage throughout this week and probably even into next week. And then after that, guys, let me pull up my silly little calendar that I always have handy. We mentioned, of course, the 16th and 23rd weekends. You've also got State 7-on-7 is the 22nd and 23rd. So we'll have coverage of that. And then there's a Rivals event in Atlanta on June 27th for underclassmen that I'm going to be at. So we're going to have a ton of stuff going on the rest of this month. So buckle up, stay tuned, orangebloods.com, and we'll have coverage of all of it.
Two things. I'll end it with 2 remarks by 2 broke to pay attention. Number one, I don't really remember this. You're saying you remember when we thought Ruben Owens was a slam dunk to Texas and ended up going to Louisville. And all I remember about the Ruben Owens commitment is not thinking anything was a slam dunk. When he committed to Louisville, I said that day he wouldn't end up at Louisville, and he didn't.
Fight the tattoo, yeah.
There was a lot going on in that recruitment that is not public knowledge. Ruben Owens was Nobody was describing him as a slam dunk anywhere. In fact, it wasn't this far deep into the year when A&M started to become a factor in his recruitment. I think what was really the most surprising thing about what happened with Reuben Owens was that he committed to Louisville before flipping to A&M. The moment A&M got really involved in his recruitment, and it felt like it might turn into a Texas A&M battle, the idea that there was a slam dunk involved in that, wasn't something I remember being said a lot. And then Two Broke also asked about Band of Brothers. It is an actual portrayal of the events that happened. And I think one of the things that if you watch this series that will kind of take your breath away is that before the episodes, they will almost always have the living veterans that remained, that were still living when they recorded Band of Brothers. They were doing interviews talking about the situations before the episodes unfolded. And it's hard to watch Band of Brothers and to believe that could happen. That it happened the way that it did, and that guys survived, and that guys could be so heroic and selfless and
could come back and just lead a normal life, go on to lead a regular life and have kids and like work on a farm or own a grocery store or something after going through. It's something, dude. It's a good one. It's a good one. Trust me. If you've got some time to like corner off and you haven't seen Band of Brothers, it is one of the shows that absolutely sticks the landing and lives up to the billing and the hype every time. I've never heard a person say, "No, I finally watched Band of Brothers and it was overrated." It has never happened ever. Matter of fact, it's a hell of a thing. I've never heard anybody say that about Band of Brothers. There's almost nothing on earth that everybody agrees on, except I think the Band of Brothers is an incredible TV experience. And I wholly recommend it. And on that note, Jason's going to go eat a bacon sandwich. I might do some corkscrew barbecue in spring. I think if I could ever lure you guys out my way, I'll take you guys to Corkscrew. I think they've got barbecue that can hang with anybody in Austin. It's that legit. So for all of us, I'm assuming Alex going to get some grub too. For Anwar, who wasn't here but had to go do some stuff with his kids and camps, we'll see you guys next week. Anwar's got the Drunk Uncle tomorrow night. We've got K&A later in the week. There's still, I think, Jason, have you and Cole recorded this week?
No, I'm thinking probably tomorrow on that. Yeah.
So tons of content here on the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, do all of those things. And oh, by the way, shout out to Blake. Always doing a fantastic job behind the scenes and producing the shows. We will see you guys later. Have a great rest of the week. Goodbye.